The stars above glimmered like scattered diamonds against the endless void, each one a silent witness to the traveler's journey. Jalen, a human envoy from the distant world of Terra, sat quietly in the observation chamber of the interstellar ship. Beyond the glass, the alien planet grew larger with every passing moment, a world of shifting light and shadow, its surface alive with strange crystalline formations that shimmered with color he could barely describe. He had traveled across the galaxy for this mission, but as the planet loomed closer, a nervous weight settled in his chest. This was no ordinary diplomatic visit. This was a journey into the very heart of alien power. When the ship's engines hummed softly to a halt, Jalen's breath caught. Through the viewport, he saw the sprawling city of the alien queen, rising like a jagged crown from the planet's surface. Towers of translucent crystal stretched toward the sky, their tips glowing faintly as though each held a fragment of the stars themselves. Shadowed figures moved along the bridges and terraces, their forms graceful but alien, almost unreal. A shiver ran down Jalen's spine, equal parts fear and awe. He had read every report, studied every sketch and transcript of the Queen's court, but nothing could truly prepare him for this. The alien queen, sovereign of the Astralis Empire, was a figure of legend. She was said to be both terrifying and magnificent, her mind sharp as a blade, her presence capable of bending those around her to her will. And her daughter, the Princess Elira, was whispered to possess powers that rivaled even the queen herself. Jalen's heart thudded with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The ship's docking sequence completed, and Jalen was escorted down the crystalline ramp. Guards, their armor reflecting the alien light, flanked him silently. Every step echoed with a hollow resonance, as if the planet itself were listening. The air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with an unfamiliar sweetness that made his head swim. He followed the procession into the grand hall of the palace, a vast chamber where walls of shimmering crystal reflected light like living water. At the far end of the hall sat the queen herself. She was taller than Jalen expected, her form both delicate and commanding, adorned in robes that seemed woven from starlight and shadow. Her eyes were pools of liquid silver, reflecting everything, revealing nothing. When she spoke, her voice was both melodic and severe, carrying the weight of authority across the hall. "Welcome, human," she said. Her gaze swept over him, unblinking, as if she were weighing not just his words, but his soul. "I have many questions, and I expect answers. You will speak truthfully, for deception here carries consequences far graver than on your world. Your first task is simple, in appearance. Tell me what you know of my daughter, Princess Elira." Yet to speak of her openly, even in neutral terms, was to risk overstepping boundaries he could barely understand. "I know that she is the heir to your throne," Jalen said carefully. "That she is intelligent, curious, and powerful. My reports do not do her justice. I have heard she is unlike any being we have encountered before." "Unlike any being, you say? Curious. And what of her nature, her desires, her inclinations?" Yet to hide the truth could invite suspicion, or worse. "I do not know her intimately," he said finally, choosing words carefully. "But I have observed moments that suggest she feels deeply. She is thoughtful, reflective, and perhaps lonely." "Lonely, you say? You speak of my daughter's solitude as if you understand it. Do you? There is more to her than you perceive, human. And soon, you will see that the smallest truths can carry the greatest weight." Elira moved with a quiet grace, her presence both radiant and shadowed, her eyes reflecting the same liquid silver as her mother's, but with a softness that betrayed a hidden warmth. Her hair flowed like a river of night, and her robes shimmered with subtle colors that seemed to shift with her movements. She did not speak at first, merely observing, as if measuring the human intruder before her. The queen's voice cut through the silence. "You see her now, speak carefully, every word matters." "I have heard of you," she said softly, and her voice was like a melody that resonated in Jalen's chest. "You carry the words of your people, and yet, what do you carry in your heart?" "I carry hope," he said cautiously. "Hope that we can understand each other, that our worlds, though distant and different, might find common ground." The queen's expression hardened once more. "Hope is fragile, human, and yet it may be the only thing strong enough to survive the trials ahead. You will remain in my court under observation until I determine whether your heart is worthy of trust." The queen's scrutiny was relentless, yet beneath it lay an unspoken promise, that his presence here mattered, that he was part of something far greater than himself. For the rest of the day, he was guided through the palace. Crystal corridors reflected his image 1,000 times over, and alien servants moved silently along the walls, attending to duties beyond his comprehension. In a secluded chamber, he glimpsed Elira again, standing by a window, her form framed by the alien skyline. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. He sensed that this meeting was only the beginning, that the princess was not just a figure of curiosity, but a being whose presence would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. The queen's words echoed in his mind. The smallest truths can carry the greatest weight. Fear, yes, but also awe, fascination, and an unexplainable pull toward the princess. And somewhere deep within, he knew that the queen's questions were only the beginning. The threads of fate were already weaving, drawing him into a story that would test loyalty, courage, and the very boundaries of the heart. Outside, the alien winds whispered through the crystalline spires, carrying secrets older than the stars themselves. And Jalen, a single human in a court of shadows and light, realized that he had entered a world where every choice mattered, every word carried weight, and every glance might alter destiny. Cliffhanger. As he prepared to rest, a soft glow illuminated his chamber. Elira's figure appeared in the doorway, silent and ethereal. Her eyes met his, and for a moment the distance between human and alien vanished. Then she spoke, her voice a whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. The question was simple, but the answer could change everything. The moon hung low over the crystalline city, casting long shadows across the corridors of the palace. Jalen could still feel the weight of Princess Elira's gaze from the previous night, lingering in his mind like a soft echo. Her question, "Do you truly understand her?" replayed endlessly, teasing his thoughts. Who exactly was she speaking of? The queen? The princess herself? Or perhaps the empire they both embodied? The uncertainty made his chest tighten, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. He had barely slept. Every corridor, every glinting crystal seemed to whisper her presence, as though the palace itself were alive, aware of the tension that hummed in the air. The Queen's court was no ordinary political theater. It was a living entity, a realm where light and shadow danced together, and even a single glance could shift the balance of power. By morning, Jalen found himself summoned again to the Queen's presence. He moved quickly, careful not to stumble over the hall's reflective floors. The Queen sat upon her throne of translucent crystal, her expression unreadable as always. Her daughter Elira remained nearby, seated on a lower platform, her eyes fixed on him with a quiet intensity that made him swallow hard. "You have seen much of my court now," the Queen said, her silver eyes piercing through him. "Tell me, human, what do you make of my daughter? You speak carefully, perhaps too carefully, and yet you perceive what many cannot. Most see only her power or her position. Few notice the depth beneath. Not the power, not the duty, but the feeling of being bound by expectation, even when your heart longs to choose differently." Finally, she nodded, almost imperceptibly. The Queen spoke again, her tone sharper now. "You will not be free to wander, human. You are under observation, but there is a way for you to learn more. The princess has places she goes when she seeks solitude, places where no one dares follow. If you can find her there, perhaps you will glimpse her true self. But beware, such places are not only hidden, they are dangerous." He had memorized the patrol routes of the alien guards and the patterns of the palace's subtle surveillance systems. Somewhere in the twisting towers and hidden gardens, Elira would be waiting. He only needed to follow the faint traces of her presence, an echo of movement, a shimmer in the light, a whisper of sound that seemed to beckon him onward. Hours passed. The palace seemed endless, a labyrinth of light and shadow. Just as he began to feel doubt creeping in, he noticed a faint glow emanating from a side corridor, soft and golden. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. He moved toward it, each step careful, aware that discovery could mean disaster. At the end of the corridor, he found a hidden garden suspended above the city, its edges framed by crystal spires. Strange flora glowed softly in the dim light, their shapes delicate and alien, shifting as though alive. Elira stood at the center, her figure framed by the luminescent flowers, her hands resting lightly on a crystalline railing as she gazed out over the city below. "You found me," she said without turning. Her voice carried a quiet note of surprise, but also something gentler, more personal. I hoped I would," Jalen replied, careful not to startle her. "I wanted to see this place to see you." "Few humans have ever stepped here," she said. "Even fewer are brave enough to try. You may find that the world you knew no longer exists when you see mine." Jalen noticed the quiet sorrow in her movements, the weight she carried not just as a princess, but as a daughter of a queen who demanded perfection. "Do you ever feel trapped?" he asked cautiously, unsure if the question would offend. Elira's gaze lifted to the distant horizon, where the alien sun cast streaks of color across the sky. "Every day," she admitted softly. "I am trained to rule, to obey, to be what others expect. And yet, there is a part of me that longs for freedom, to make choices without fear of judgment, without the weight of legacy pressing down." They see the crown, the power, the strength, but not the yearning beneath. The light of the garden, the shimmering city below, the distant stars, they all faded into the background. There was only the connection between them, fragile yet undeniable. "You speak honestly," she said finally. "Few do, but honesty can be dangerous here. The queen watches everything. One misstep, one word too revealing, and you could find yourself cast out or worse. But perhaps you are different from the others." In these exchanges, a fragile trust began to grow, fragile as the crystalline petals around them, yet real. As night deepened, a soft wind rustled through the garden, carrying with it the scent of alien flora and the hum of the city below. Elira paused, her gaze distant. "You must leave soon," she said. "If the queen discovers you here, she will demand answers. And she does not forgive lightly." He understood, in a way he had never understood before, that this journey was not merely about diplomacy or survival. It was about navigating emotions that could alter the course of worlds. As he made his way back through the palace corridors, the glow of the hidden garden fading behind him, he felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. Elira's presence lingered in his mind, a constant reminder of the complexities that lay ahead. The queen's questions, the princess's subtle tests, and the fragile trust forming between them, it all wove a tapestry of uncertainty, desire, and responsibility. And somewhere in the shadows, the palace itself seemed to watch, waiting to see how the threads of fate would unravel or bind together. Cliffhanger, that night, as Jalen lay in his chamber, he heard a soft whisper on the wind, unmistakable and clear, though no one was there. The next step he took would determine not just his fate, but the delicate balance between human and alien, between hearts yearning for connection across impossible divides. Days passed in the palace, each one heavier than the last. Jalen moved carefully among the crystal corridors, aware of the queen's ever-watchful eyes. Though she had not spoken harshly, her presence was always felt, a quiet pressure that reminded him how fragile his position truly was. Every step, every glance, carried consequences far beyond what he had imagined. Yet he could not stay away from Elira. The princess had begun leaving subtle traces, small signs only he seemed to notice. A shimmer in the light, a folded note left in a hidden alcove, the faint scent of alien flowers lingering in the halls. It was as though she were inviting him into her world, testing his courage and measuring his intentions. Each discovery filled him with both excitement and apprehension. On the fourth evening, he finally followed her trail to a secluded chamber atop one of the palace towers. The room was circular, with walls of crystal that glowed softly in the dim light. Strange, luminous vines curled along the edges, their flowers pulsing gently as if breathing. Elira stood in the center, her arms crossed, gazing out at the alien city below. "You came," she said, her voice quiet, yet laced with an emotion that made Jalen's chest tighten. "I promised," he replied, "I would find you again. I need to know you, beyond the walls, beyond the duty, beyond what everyone expects of you." "I want to see it," he said, "not as a challenge, not as a curiosity, but because I care. If it means knowing you, truly knowing you, it is worth it." He realized that the princess's life was a cage gilded with brilliance, one that few could see or comprehend. "And you?" Elira asked suddenly, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What of your world, your people? Do you live bound by duty as I do?" "Our own duties, but perhaps not as rigid, not as absolute as yours. Yet even we have burdens, even we long for freedom at times. You accept it with its beauty and its weight." Yet the palace was never truly silent. Outside, shadows moved, silent watchers whose loyalty to the queen made every private moment a potential danger. Jalen was acutely aware that this fragile trust could be shattered at any moment. One evening, as they sat near a window overlooking the glowing city, Elira's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you understand now why I asked you before, whether you truly understand me?" The touch was electric yet gentle, and it sent a shiver down his spine. "Few have ever dared to reach this far," she said softly, And yet, you do not hesitate, you do not fear what might come. And I care for you, in ways others do not. One night, Jalen noticed a faint glow outside the chamber's crystal walls. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. He followed the light, Elira silently by his side, and discovered a hidden balcony overlooking the city. From there, the vast expanse of spires and bridges seemed endless, the alien lights reflecting like a river of stars. This is where I come when I need to feel free, Elira said quietly. Where I can breathe without the weight of expectation pressing down. Only the two of them remained, two beings from distant worlds bound together by choice and understanding. Yet beneath the beauty lay the ever-present tension, the Queen's scrutiny, the fragile secrecy, the knowledge that every bond they formed carried consequences beyond their control. I am afraid, Elira admitted suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Afraid that one day this will be taken from us, that the Queen will discover what we share and judge us harshly. Whatever comes, I will stand by you. He had a growing sense that their secrecy could not hold forever, that the Queen would soon test them, probing the limits of their trust and courage. That night, as he returned to his chamber, Jalen could not shake the feeling that something was shifting. The threads of fate were weaving together, pulling him and Elira closer, yet also signaling the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. Every heartbeat felt louder, every shadow a potential witness. Before sleep could claim him, a soft whisper echoed through the room, faint yet unmistakable. Do you understand the cost of what you seek? The bond he had formed with Elira was real yet fragile, and soon it would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. He stared out the window at the alien city below, glowing softly in the night. Somewhere within those towers and spires, Elira was watching, perhaps thinking the same thing. Their worlds were so different, their lives so constrained by duty and expectation. And yet a connection had formed, delicate as the crystal flowers in her hidden gardens, yet unbreakable in its intensity. Jalen knew, deep in his heart, that nothing would ever be the same. The Court of Shadows had become more than a place of politics and observation. It had become a place of trust, of longing, and of risk. And the next step, whatever it might be, would test them both in ways neither had anticipated. Cliffhanger. As the first light of dawn touched the crystal spires, a distant alarm rang through the palace. Guards rushed past his door, their movements frantic and precise. A single thought struck Jalen with icy clarity. Jalen could feel the tension in the air the moment he stepped from his chamber. Guards moved quickly, their forms slicing through the corridors with precision, and whispers of urgency floated from hall to hall. Something had shifted. The Queen had sensed the growing bond between him and Elira. He found her waiting in the hidden garden, as if she had anticipated his arrival. Her expression was unreadable, shadowed with worry. The Queen knows, she said quietly, her voice low but firm. She can feel what is happening. She has always known, but now she tests. She measures courage, loyalty, and understanding. She will push you to your limits, and she will do the same for me. They walked in silence to the central hall, the path lined with statues of past rulers, each one frozen in crystal as if watching them. The hall opened into a grand chamber where the Queen awaited, seated upon her throne like a goddess of light and shadow. Elira stood beside her, her posture straight, her expression calm yet alert. You have come, the Queen said, her voice both soft and commanding. Good. I wondered if you had the courage to face the consequences of your attachments. You must prove your loyalty, your discernment, and your ability to act when others cannot. You must demonstrate that your heart does not cloud your judgment, and that your will can withstand pressure beyond imagining. The Queen raised her hand, and the walls of the chamber shifted. Crystalline doors slid open, revealing a series of rooms, each more strange and imposing than the last. Within these halls are trials, she said. Each is designed to test a different aspect of your being. You will proceed in order, and your companion may accompany you. But know this, failure has consequences. Then we face them together. Elira saw visions of her mother disappointed, the empire collapsing, and a world she could not save. For a moment both were frozen, overwhelmed by the intensity of the illusions, but they remembered their promise. Jalen reached for Elira's hand, grounding himself and her in reality. We are together, he said firmly. No vision can break that. They had to navigate through the void, relying on intuition and their bond. Elira's hand guided Jalen through invisible obstacles, and he returned the favor, whispering encouragement as shadows threatened to disorient them. Hours felt like minutes, and each challenge brought new tests, puzzles of thought, trials of courage, and moments that required complete faith in one another. Jalen discovered depths of resilience he had never known, and Elira showed a strength beyond mere power. They learned to communicate without words, to anticipate and protect, to balance freedom with restraint. But the final trial was the most daunting. A vast hall, its ceiling lost in shadow, was illuminated by hundreds of floating orbs of light. Within them swirled images of the people they loved, worlds they cherished, and possibilities they longed for. Yet each orb also carried temptation, a chance to leave, to escape responsibility, to choose safety over duty. The Queen's voice echoed through the chamber. "Here your hearts are weighed. Will you choose yourselves, or will you endure for the sake of others? Will your bond hold when tested by desire, fear, and uncertainty?" "Together," she repeated, her voice steady despite the tension. As they moved through the hall, the orbs began to fade, their light dimming as the Queen's presence seemed to measure their resolve. When the last orb vanished, the chamber was silent. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the Queen's voice spoke, calm but heavy with judgment. "You have passed what few could," she said. "Not through power, not through cunning, but through understanding, courage, and loyalty. You have shown that your hearts can withstand trials, and that your bond is not fragile. You will face choices in the days ahead that may alter the balance of our worlds. Be vigilant, trust wisely, and remember, every action carries consequences far beyond what you perceive. Perhaps you are the first to show me that love, when guided by understanding and courage, can be a force rather than a weakness." They had passed the trials, yet the greater challenges were yet to come: the politics of the court, the responsibilities of royalty, and the delicate threads of their relationship. Later, in the quiet of the hidden garden, Jalen and Elira allowed themselves a rare moment of reflection. "We survived," Jalen said, his voice low, almost in disbelief. Elira smiled faintly. "We did." But survival is not the same as freedom. The Queen's challenge was only the beginning. There will be more decisions to make, risks to take, sacrifices to endure. The palace seemed to hold its breath, aware of the bond that had been forged through trials and trust. And yet, beneath the calm, a tension lingered, a subtle reminder that the Queen's eyes were everywhere, and that the next choice could tip the balance of everything they had fought for. That night, as Jalen prepared to rest, a sudden tremor shook the palace. Lights flickered, alarms echoed faintly, and distant voices, unrecognizable yet urgent, filled the corridors. Something was happening beyond the palace walls, something that demanded attention and courage. Elira appeared at his door, her expression sharp and determined. "The Queen senses it too," she said. "The Empire stirs. Forces are moving that may challenge everything we have built. We cannot wait, we must act." Together they stepped into the night, their hands intertwined, hearts aligned in silent agreement. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it side by side. The Court of Shadows, the Queen's challenge, and the delicate balance of trust and love had brought them this far. But the path ahead was uncertain, and the true test of their bond had only just begun. Cliffhanger, as they emerged onto the palace balcony, the sky above erupted with streaks of light, an approaching fleet of unknown origin moving swiftly toward the planet. Elira's eyes widened, and Jalen felt a chill run through him. The Queen had prepared them for trials, but this was a test unlike any they had faced before. The sky above the palace burned with streaks of light, a cascade of color that reflected in the crystal towers below. Jalen stood beside Elira on the palace balcony, their hands still intertwined. Beyond the glowing city, an alien fleet approached, moving with silent precision, a reminder that their trials were far from over. Yet in that moment, everything else, the fear, the uncertainty, the weight of the Queen's scrutiny, faded into a quiet intensity between them. Elira's eyes were wide, silver reflecting the approaching ships. "They're not here to negotiate," she said, her voice steady but tight. "Whatever comes next, it will demand everything we have." "You have shown courage," she said, her voice low but resonant, "and loyalty. But courage alone is not enough. There is one final truth that must be spoken, one that will determine the future of this court and perhaps the Empire itself." The Queen was demanding a confession, not of political allegiance but of the heart. "Your feelings," the Queen continued, "cannot remain hidden. They influence your decisions, your courage, and your perception of loyalty. Speak them now, human, and speak truly. For the next moments will define not just your fate, but the fate of the one you care for most. More than I can explain, more than duty, more than fear, I respect her and I admire her courage and her wisdom. And I wish to stand by her to understand her and to face whatever comes, not as a messenger, not as an outsider, but as someone who is part of her life. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause, the distant hum of the approaching fleet fading into silence. Then she spoke, her tone measured, almost thoughtful. Honesty, rare and dangerous in this place, yet you have chosen it despite the risks. You have shown strength beyond mere survival. You have revealed your heart, and in doing so, you have proven your worth. Then slowly a subtle warmth entered her gaze, a glimmer of approval tempered with the weight of centuries of rule. Love, when guided by understanding and courage, is not weakness, she said. It is a force, one that can unite worlds or challenge them. You have chosen to embrace it, and in doing so, you may yet change the balance of this empire. Elira took his hand, their fingers interlacing tightly. Whatever comes, she said, we face it together, as allies, as friends, as something more. The queen moved beside them, her presence commanding, her expression unreadable but resolute. They will test us, she said. Not with riddles or trials of spirit, but with force. You must remember what you have learned, trust, courage, unity. The bond you share is your strength. And it must remain so, even as the world seeks to tear you apart. Their weapons glowed ominously, scanning the city with silent precision. The Queen's fleet responded immediately, crystalline vessels rising from hidden ports, their forms reflecting the alien sun. It was a dance of light and shadow, a display of power that dazzled and terrified. Jalen realized then that this was more than a test of courage. It was a test of strategy, of understanding, and of the heart. He and Elira moved quickly, coordinating with the Queen's aides, sharing insight from his human perspective, and applying the lessons he had learned from their secret trials. Every decision mattered, every move was critical, and yet they were not acting as individuals. They were united, their bond strengthening their resolve and guiding their choices. Hours passed in tense coordination, the alien fleet testing their defenses, probing weaknesses, and retreating only to return stronger. Yet with each challenge, Jalen and Elira's teamwork became more seamless. They anticipated each other's thoughts, moved in harmony, and inspired confidence in the forces around them. Finally, after a relentless series of attacks and maneuvers, the fleet retreated, their mission incomplete, their presence diminished by the coordination, courage, and unity displayed by the Queen, her daughter, and the human who had chosen honesty and loyalty over fear. The Queen turned to them once the immediate threat had passed. "You have faced trials of heart and of battle," she said. "You have shown that understanding, trust, and courage can prevail, even against overwhelming odds. It is rare to see such strength in a bond and rarer still across species. You have earned not just my approval, but my respect." "We did it," she whispered, her voice low but full of warmth. Jalen smiled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and elation. "We did together." Loyalty, courage, and love are not weaknesses. They are forces that, when wielded wisely, can change the course of history. Later, in the quiet of the hidden garden, Jalen and Elira stood together, looking out over the glowing city. The crystal towers sparkled in the twilight, a testament to the Empire's resilience and beauty. They had faced trials of spirit and heart, and they had survived, not untouched, but stronger, united, and ready for what lay ahead. "I never imagined," Jalen said softly, "that honesty could be so powerful, that admitting what I feel could make such a difference. You have embraced them, and in doing so, you have become part of something far greater than yourself." "Together," she repeated, and for the first time the weight of duty seemed lighter, shared between them rather than borne alone. The Queen watched from her throne, her expression unreadable but tinged with approval. She had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and seen the strength of a bond that transcended fear, expectation, and even species. It was a rare gift, a human and an alien princess, united not by convenience but by understanding, courage, and love. As night settled over the palace, the city glimmered like a river of stars. The fleet had retreated, but the world beyond remained uncertain. There would be challenges, obstacles, and trials yet to come. But for now, Jalen and Elira had faced the most crucial trial of all, the courage to speak their truth and embrace what their hearts had chosen. In the quiet of the hidden garden, they stood together, hands intertwined, hearts aligned. The crystal flowers glowed softly around them, reflecting the stars above. The Court of Shadows, the Queen's challenge, and the uncertainty of the Empire seemed distant in that moment. What mattered was here and now, the bond they had forged, the honesty they had shared, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. And somewhere in the quiet watchfulness of the palace, the queen allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but she had seen the proof that even across worlds, hearts could find strength and love could shape destiny. Final hook, Jalen and Elira stood at the balcony, gazing at the stars that stretched beyond the alien skies. "Whatever comes next," Elira whispered, "we are ready, together." And in that word, in that promise, a new chapter began, one where trust, courage, and love would guide them into the unknown, shaping not just their fates, but the fate of worlds. When the alien queen questioned me about her daughter, I finally confessed HFY.